The image of UFOs and aliens often appears in science fiction. But what about reality? What are the chances that people will actually encounter this phenomenon? In this episode, we will try not to be biased, and will answer different questions and loud statements from those who say they saw something and know something. And at the end, I will tell my own story of encountering a UFO. And we will probably start with the famous case that happened on July 4th, 1947. Farmer William McBrazel went to check on his flock of sheep after a strong storm. On a hillside in the desert, the farmer saw strange debris of a mysterious object, described as looking like a flying saucer. Moreover, nearby there were transparent spheres, inside of which silhouettes could be guessed. The man reported this discovery to the sheriff. The military arrived at the crash site. The story became widely known, and the news was even discussed on local radio. However, later, it was reported that the find turned out to be a weather balloon. But most people did not agree with that. This case was not mentioned for 30 years, until in the late 1970s, the head of the intelligence department, Jesse Marcel, admitted in an interview that the version with the weather balloon was falsified, and that the military really observed mysterious artifacts, such as foil, that could not be crumpled, strange symbols, and light but extremely strong elements. This story was discussed in the press for 2 decades, and it all ended in 1994, when an official conclusion of a new investigation was published. It said that the crashed object belonged to a classified military program for monitoring nuclear tests. Well, we never found out the truth. But this story has one strange coincidence, namely the year of the event. The thing is that in the 1950s, a flying machine called Avrakar was created. It looked very much like a flying saucer, and it was not alien technology. According to documents, engineers tried to achieve vertical landing and vertical takeoff using jet engines. Specialists also believed that their device could reach speeds of up to 5,000 km/h, rise to a height of 30 kilometers, and have a maximum flight range of about 1,900 kilometers. But in reality, experiments managed to lift the craft only a few meters, and its speed was no more than 56 km/h. Because of the central jet engine, the aircraft worked very loudly and exposed the pilot to high temperatures. Officially, the project was closed. But what if that's not true? Just imagine what engineers could have achieved in 70 years. Meanwhile, UFOs continued to appear both among random eyewitnesses and among pilots. So, in May 1957, fighter pilot Milton Torres in rural England suddenly received an order to take off and shoot down an unidentified flying object. The pilot chased the object, which at times seemed motionless, and then suddenly began approaching at a speed of about 2,000 km/h. According to the pilot, the UFO did not follow classical Newtonian mechanics. It made a right turn almost on the spot. But when the pilot locked onto the object and prepared to fire, it disappeared from radar screens. For your information, radars do not see ball lightning. This strange meeting was one of the few that happened during the Cold War. In general, one of the most famous UFO observation projects is the so-called Project Blue Book. Within this project, attempts were made to organize numerous eyewitness observations into one common archive. The project began in 1947, and by 1970, all activity was stopped. By the time of closure, more than 12,000 various reports about UFOs, aliens, and extraterrestrial life had been collected. Most of them were fiction and falsifications by eyewitnesses, but there were also events that still cannot be explained. In the Soviet Union, things were different. Special services actively studied contacts with aliens, and among ordinary people there were many enthusiasts who paid attention to this problem on their own initiative. In the 1990s, interest in UFOs disappeared, and together with its disappearance, research also stopped. Although archives about these phenomena, cases, and developments still exist today. And now, in our time, more precisely in 2022, UFOs began to be studied again from a scientific point of view, or, as they are now called, unidentified anomalous phenomena. And this is not accidental. The fact is that conversations about suspicious objects in the sky over different countries became more frequent after the United States began shooting down suspicious objects, including in Alaska, while stating that it does not rule out their extraterrestrial origin. But as always, most materials are classified. Moreover, during the year, Uruguay, Chile, India, China, Canada, European countries, and especially countries where military conflicts are taking place, reported strange objects in the sky. This also cannot be a coincidence. So what is it? Secret developments of large private corporations? Or really the intervention of alien travelers? David Grush, a former intelligence officer, spoke in favor of the latter. He also claimed that authorities have not only fragments of alien spacecraft, but also the remains of aliens. He is absolutely sure that for decades, authorities could hide super-secret programs for detecting and studying extraterrestrial life and its technologies. According to him, there are partially undamaged alien aircraft that either landed successfully or crashed. Moreover, the government managed to obtain and begin studying UFO fragments within a classified state program for searching alien ships. In addition to David Grush, 2 more witnesses spoke at congressional committee hearings, also Pentagon employees, who spoke in a similar way. But it is unclear. If this is super secret, why did it become available to everyone? Meanwhile, immunology professor Gary Nolan stated that aliens visited Earth and remain here to this day. In his opinion, the effect aliens have on humans is the same as that of Spanish conquistadors on Native Americans. They simply cannot comprehend them. In addition, footage of 2 recently declassified UFO observation cases was shown. For example, a video made in the Middle East in 2022, and another recording from South Asia, which was made this year and is still awaiting expert evaluation. However, reality may be more mundane. After the incident with the Chinese balloon, people began to look more closely at the sky and, just in case, shoot down all objects that come into view. News about mysterious objects shot down in the sky caused a wave of activity among amateur ufologists. They predict that in the near future, there will be even more UFO reports. And this is really so. The U.S. intelligence community stated that, as of August 2022, Special Services received 510 reports of unidentified flying objects. This is a very large number. For comparison, in the period before March 5, 2021, only 344 such reports were received in a total of 17 years of observation. A particularly memorable case of those times occurred in Belgium in 1990. On the night of March 30th to 31, unknown objects were tracked by radar and were seen by eyewitnesses, whose total number was about 13,000 people. 2,600 of them submitted written statements with detailed descriptions of what they saw. It was impossible to hide something like that, and pointless. Therefore, after the incident, the Belgian Air Force released a detailed report about the events of that night. At about 11 p.m. on March 30th, the head of the center received a message that 3 unusual lights were moving toward the city. The lights were reportedly brighter than stars, changed their colors between red, green, and yellow, and were located at the vercini of an equilateral triangle, in the center of which there was also a glowing element. About 10 minutes later, a second group of lights was detected, moving in the direction of the first triangle. About half an hour later, the phenomenon was observed on radar. After some chaotic maneuvers, the second group of lights also turned into a small triangle. The center gave the order to secretly send 2 F-16 fighter jets. All this time, the phenomenon was still clearly visible from the ground. Witnesses described a whole formation of lights maintaining their position relative to each other, while slowly moving across the sky. Over the next hour, 2 F-16 fighters tried 9 times to lock onto the target. In 3 cases, they managed to get its coordinates from radar for a few seconds. But each time, the position and speed of the target changed so quickly that the lock was lost. At the moment of the first radar lock, the target accelerated from 240 km/h to more than 1790 km/h, changing altitude from 2,700 mph to 15 mph, then to 3,350 mph, and then descended almost to ground level. The first descent of more than 900 meters was made in less than 2 seconds. Similar maneuvers were observed during both subsequent locks. Such sudden changes in acceleration and deceleration would be deadly for any human pilots controlling the object. During this time, eyewitnesses on the ground confirmed with many reports that the smaller triangle completely disappeared from sight, while the large triangle moved upward very quickly. When the F-16 flew past, radars of the aircraft and the control center completely lost contact. In fact, it is hard to believe, but it was exactly this object that I and several other people observed in 2007. But this was in Russia, in a small town. The object was quite massive, about 30 meters, but absolutely silent, and could move instantly in a matter of seconds. It looked exactly like what eyewitnesses in Belgium described. To be honest, it was hard to believe that this unidentified object was made by humans. Most likely, you have also seen something strange in the sky. Share your story, too. Yes, people love interesting riddles, something mystical and unexplained, and UFOs are part of that list. But there are nuances. Increased interest in the unexplained has a downside. It can reinforce the mistaken idea that UFOs must be alien spacecraft, serving as a cover for government organizations and their manipulations, especially considering the events of recent years. In favor of this, let us recall unique secret and non-secret projects that existed back in the 1950s. Just imagine. More than 70 years have passed, and engineers could have achieved amazing results in a completely new field for us, one we have no idea about. A completely new technology, thanks to which silent vehicles of different shapes and sizes fly. And it seems that these technologies will remain classified for a long time because introducing them into our lives threatens many interests, from national security to the world economy. But who knows? Maybe we are wrong, and someone has been watching us for a long time. We just need to understand who or what exactly. In any case, the truth is somewhere nearby. This video does not claim to have all the answers. But one thing is certain. The truth is closer than we think. If you enjoy mysterious stories, real eyewitness accounts, and hidden military secrets, this video is for you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your own experience in the comments.